think we'll play that Anton Hudobin audio about 15 more times this afternoon.
Absolutely.
And, well, I guess, we can play it right now because Nick Nurse signed a new deal, and this is what Nick Nurse had to say to everyone throughout the NBA that may want his services after he signed. This is what Nick Nurse said. This is exclusive audio from earlier today.
We're not going home!
Nick Nurse sticking around. He had 1 year left on his deal. I guess it avoids the whole lame duck thing, although I don't think that would exist.
Is that what the deal with the coaches are, Brian? They don't like entering that like with nothing after the 1 year?
Probably, yeah. And I think the organization probably didn't want the whole, is he going to leave?
Yeah,
are the Knicks going to come after him? Will some other team, the Bulls or whoever it might be,
yeah, good point,
lock him in?
Yeah.
And to discuss the news from earlier today, we're joined now by our Raptors reporter, Josh Lewenberg. This obviously makes all the sense in the world, so it's more about the element of surprise. I mean, I didn't expect to hear this news today. What do you make of the news and the timeline on the extension for Nick Nurse?
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as decisions go, this is probably the easiest one that they'll have to make this summer. This is a big off season. It's not as big, obviously, as next off season is going to be. We've been talking about the summer of 2021. It seems like forever, but this is the off season that sets them up for next off season. And there's a bunch of decisions that they have to make in order to put them in a position, I think, where they're able to go out there and maybe get a big free agent next year. And I think in order to do that, I mean, obviously we'll talk about Fred VanVleet and Serge Ibaka and Marc Gasol on the free agents, the player personnel, because that's obviously what people think about when they think about the offseason and free agency, all that is the players. But I think it's just as important, maybe even more important in this case for the Raptors, is to reinforce that foundation that they've built that's been so strong for them that they're going to need if they're going to go out there and get Giannis or get whoever next year. So the first step was an obvious one and a logical one, obviously, in locking up Nick Nurse, who has done really well here and has become one of the most well-regarded coaches in the NBA already. And then the next step, and I'm sure we'll talk about this over the coming days, maybe weeks and months as well, is they've got to lock up that front office. Masai Ujiri and Bobby Webster, they're in the same boat that you guys were talking about, that lame duck situation where they're going into the last year of their contract. And I don't think anyone would feel comfortable or confident about the Raptors' chances of maybe recruiting Giannis or anybody in a year from now if Masai Ujiri isn't locked up. That's got to be the top priority, especially now that Nick Nurse is taken care of.
Nick Nurse is taken care of. Do the specifics or the particulars of this deal ever come out, Josh, or are we just waiting on those, or they never come out?
Yeah, no details yet. I mean, at some point we'll probably find out, maybe not dollar amount, but we'll find out the year, the term at some point. But the team hasn't released those details.
Yeah, the Masai contract now, I guess, has been hanging over the team even more so than Nick Nurse. But I think this is as important as signing Masai Ujiri, and maybe a little bit more important because Masai has already done his job. He's already brought a championship team here, and he has left, even with Kawhi leaving, a team that is going to creep up on 60 wins and I think be competitive for quite some time. A coach turning over, moving on from a guy who is now considered a top 5 coach in the NBA is a different story. You know, you need to lock in Nick Nurse. Nick Nurse gets the most out of this team. Look what he's done this year. I think the players really respect him. I think he's somewhere between a tough coach, a demanding coach, and a player's coach. So I think, yeah, Masai is an obvious one. You got to try to lock him in, and I'm sure Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment are doing everything they can at this point or will be at some point. But I think signing Nurse is as important as getting Masai locked in because Masai's already done his job. He's won a title.
Yeah, I'll just say this. They're both obviously really important. For Nick, I think, I mean, what the Raptors liked about him when they hired him has turned out to be the thing I think that's probably his biggest strength is the fact that he's so adaptable and can coach different teams. So even right now at a play we talked about how, I don't want to say uncertain the Raptors' future is because I think they're in a good spot, but there is obviously some uncertainty there in that we don't know what they're going to look like even in a few months from now, let alone in a year from now. But Nick has proven that he can take different types of teams, a team with a superstar last year, which sounds like a pretty good gig, but obviously that had its challenges as well, being that the superstar didn't necessarily want to come here and was in a unique situation with the load management and all of that. That was not an easy job last year to manage all of those egos and to manage that talent to get the Raptors ultimately to where they did, winning the championship. And then this year, I would argue that I think most people would, that the sequel was even more important than, or even more impressive than the debut, doing what he did with what he got this year and all the injuries and all of that. So, yeah, I mean, regardless of what direction the Raptors are going to go in here or what the roster is going to look like, Nick Nurse is a guy that he's proven that he can make the most out of whatever roster that he's given. I do think that Masai, I mean, we've been talking about this for years, and it's gotten to the point now where Masai Ujiri is as big as anybody, certainly with the Raptors and maybe in Toronto sports, in terms of that figure, that guy that makes the difference, that guy that inspires confidence, the guy that you can probably least afford to lose. I mean, he's right up there with Kyle Lowry in terms of being the face of this Raptors team, and maybe he is above Kyle Lowry in terms of being the face of this team. So, like I said, if you're going into 2021 hoping to use that cap space that the Raptors haven't really had for years now, they've been planning for 2021 for a while, and if the plan is to chase Giannis or whoever else is out there, you're not doing that without Masai Ujiri in the room.
Right.
But you're probably not doing it without Nick Nurse.
Exactly.
In the room
That's my point. Is I think Nurse what he has done through 2 years, that rings out for a lot of people. Like a lot of players, a lot of agents, a lot of people in the NBA realize this guy has put forth plans that have worked and have won. And Masai is the salesman, but I think Nurse is right there with them in terms of this is what we bring as a collective. So I think when it gets to a point where if you get a chance to sit down with Giannis, Masai is making the pitch, but I think Nick is in the room, and I think he has to be in the room, and I think it's an important part of the pitch. Stability, culture, winning, a coach that knows how to push buttons and improve players like he has the past 2 years. And I wouldn't be surprised if Nick Nurse – I would be surprised, actually, if he didn't ask Masai, I'm willing to stick around, I want to stick around, but do I have any reason to believe you're going to leave? And he's not going to go public with the answer, but I think this might be the first sign that Masai might be next, and hopefully is sticking around, because you would think Nick Nurse wants to know who he's working with and who he's working for.
Yeah, I would think we'll have the answer to that pretty soon. Like if a Masai, and we haven't mentioned the name Bobby Webster really as well, but he's sort of tied to Masai in that front office. If those two are nearing an extension or have talked to MLSE about an extension, I imagine that gets done. I would believe that gets done pretty soon, maybe even as early as this week. So I think we have a pretty good idea over the next little while whether or not those two are going to be sticking around for the long term.